Chris, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So excited. I've been waiting for this all day.
Have you? Because I have too.
Yeah. So I'm so excited that we've had an opportunity to get together. I would love for you to introduce yourself, your dreams of being in HR and HR technology, your role today, where you live, your family, all about you.
Okay.
411 about you. For
Four-
those young people that don't know what 411 is, that's like what you used to dial for information. Cool.
I'm Chris Maurio. I'm the Vice President of Solutions at Argano, so focusing on HR technology, but tell you a little bit about my start then. So I got a degree in psychology because I didn't know what major to pick. So
Well, of course, psychology,
so picked
right?
psychology.
Yeah.
And I had to do an internship my senior year. Didn't know what I wanted to get an internship with, but I was always really good at math, always good at research, and an HR internship popped up actually. And I said, that's interesting. I don't know anything about this, but let's give it a shot. And first day of the internship, they said, it was at this association where they took care of disabled people, ultimately. And they handed me a book and said, we want you to build a Microsoft Access database to keep track of our on-call workers. And I was like, I have no idea how to use Microsoft Access or anything like that, but let's figure this out, okay? And that's where I started learning about sort of system building, databases, and said, this is pretty cool. I did everything from mass interviewing at that time and typical HR administration, but I parlayed that into an opportunity at a university that was going into a Oracle implementation at the time.
Okay.
So got my start, and
Oracle HR?
Oracle HR.
Okay.
HR, finance, but they hired me as a benefits assistant. And I, again, got very lucky that they gave me this chance, but they saw something in me ultimately. But what I was responsible doing for was really just answering those benefits-related questions. I was helping people enroll in open enrollment. One of the cool things I got to do was help a Nobel laureate, the president of the university at the time, enroll in self-service. So that was one of my claims to fame.
Because he couldn't figure it out otherwise, right? He had to have help to figure it out.
Early 2000 self-service, maybe not that intuitive,
Right, exactly.
I got to do some really other interesting things. So we also had a professor emeriti that he was getting older. He had Medicare. He had insurance through the university, and he needed help paying his bills and how those bills were organized. So I used to keep track of his benefits claims. So I learned all of that. So it was a lot of really cool early career experiences in the HR space.
And you fell in love.
I fell in love. Sounds bad, but I saw this guy in a fancy shirt and a nice watch, and I said, what does he do? And they said, he's the consultant. And I said, what does that entail? And ultimately, found a great relationship with a lot of great folks and stayed in the technology space from there.
That's awesome. And the psychology still around somewhere?
I mean, anybody that's worked in HR knows that most of the job is psychology related, right?
Yeah.
And dealing with people and all of those complexities that humans bring to work, right?
So you and I started connecting around AI.
Yeah.
Like when AI became, I'm not going to say mainstream, because I'm not even sure it is mainstream, but when we started to talk about how HR could use AI, or maybe I'll even go one step back and say how humans could use AI, and started to connect on LinkedIn around those types of topics. And you've really created a niche around that, not just within Oracle implementations, but in general. And like one of my favorite posts that you ever did was you were talking about your family and, and having your son build an app. And this son is not that old, if I remember correctly. So maybe you can go into that, because I'd love to get, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have just thrown that at you, but I think we're in such a magical period right now of starting to rethink how wiring in people's brains work. And as a psychology major, I'm sure that the combination of that and a parent, probably, and AI together, is probably quite the explosive combination.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think every parent always says, I have a really smart kid, right?
Of course.
Or a super curious kid. But he's so curious about every last thing. But I was in one of your webinars and just really enjoyed it. And you brought up Lovable, right? With the vibe coding. And I said, that is so cool. because my son is just curious about everything and wanting, he'll build various things. He's into crocheting, he's into building bracelets and all of that type of stuff, but he's into the technology side. Obviously, a little screen time here and there, you know, every parent does it. And I said, what if we could create something that is of interest to you? So I said, look, I learned about this really cool tool from Jason on this webinar I was on, and essentially you could build your own app. And he was like, I could build my own app? Like, what do you mean, Dad? And so he's 6 years old, pretty young for these things, obviously, but I said, this is something I can expose you to with controls, right? I'm sitting side by side with you. This will be an activity for us to do together the same way as if we were building with the Legos like we do. And I said, let's try to, what do you want to build? What do you want to come up with, right? And he said, I want to build an ice cream store. Like some kind of app where people can pick what flavors, and do they want a cone? Do they want a cup? And I said, let's try this then, right? And we built our first prompt, and it spit out, a workable version of an app. And then I said, what do you like about this? What don't you like about this? And he said, well, I would change this or I would change that. And I said, well, let's learn again how to reprompt this and make those changes and see what happens.
Did he think, I just have to ask, did he think it was cool, or did he just think it was kind of just, I like this? I mean, like, for me, the first time I ever did it, I'm like, oh my God, like, I can't believe this, I used to outsource this to India, or I used to outsource this to Poland, Like, what was his reaction?
Yeah. I mean, I was amazed. He thought it was really cool that it was able to do that, but he was like, the user interface isn't exact. He didn't say user interface, obviously, but he was like, I wish it looked a little bit different, and it's a little bit like doesn't totally fit on it sometimes. So he was very critical of it.
Oh, interesting. At 6.
At 6, yeah. So no, but he thought it was pretty cool, but then we wanted to do more experiments, and like another idea that him and I were playing around with, and this was a little bit me pushing though, was like, what if we had something to keep track of like the food that we have and the food you like, and like what should we plan out for the week, right? Because like every parent knows, again, like figuring out like, are you buying school lunch today? Are you not buying school lunch? What are we gonna make? Like, oh, you don't want pizza 3 nights in a row.
Right.
So we built one of those as well too, a little bit more my guidance, and then my plan is to make it more gamified and maybe like award points if you eat more broccoli or something.
So I always talk about the FAFO, the fool around and find out.
Yeah.
I know some people exchange the Fs for other Fs, but that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, you're kind of fool around and find out with your son. And I'm just curious as to if you take that and apply it back to like the enterprise software space, like how do you think that's going to impact enterprise software? Because what if all of a sudden the benefits coordinator, like at the university, fooled around and found out and said, wow, I could build something to make this much easier and just do it myself, instead of, I'm going to wait and do a big implementation and it's going to take 9 months and $900,000. Like, do you think a tool like Lovable will ever be within an enterprise? Or do you think like an Oracle or a Workday or a SuccessFactors will have tools like that will allow that prompt ability, just speak English or whatever language you speak, and get an app?
Yeah, so I mean, I a lot there that I want to unpack probably. So first, I think Lovable, right, would be a great tool to maybe do something like, if you don't have an employee survey software, maybe something like that that's relatively safe, let's say, where we're not using a lot of like personal information or things of that nature, because I don't know enough about all the back end there.
Right. Well, it's interesting. I did a podcast with Dr. Thomas Otter last week, and he said there's skirmishes around the edges. Yeah. He said there's not really like overthrow in the center, but there's kind of skirmishes around the edges. And that's what he was talking about. Like, hey, if you want to do an employee survey tool where it doesn't really have to integrate into a lot of stuff, maybe that's where something like Lovable fits in well.
Yeah, but then, okay, let's use Oracle as the example, though, right? Oracle's got the AI Agent Studio.
Yep.
I could build an agent, and me and some of my team, we're hands-on actually building those. And I think within the right organization with the right people, they have that tool there. The right person's going to go in their time and try to figure this out and build something and go, I can make my job easier. Especially now, like, not to do an Oracle sales pitch, but I mean, it's built into the application. Like,
Right. It's not a separate
no
thing.
separate tool,
Yeah.
no separate anything, relatively safe. They could try it and have a working prototype in very, very little time. So I do think that's happening with the right people that are eager to do that, for sure.
Or partners like you who are doing it for clients.
Of course.
Right? Or are you starting to see that where clients are starting to ask, instead of saying, because I've used this saying probably in the last 3 months, that software used to control companies. So, a piece of software, let's say Oracle, said, hey, you have to put it in this way. And guess what? Because you have to put it in this way, you have to organize your company this way in order to use the software. Or SAP, like, people used to build huge manufacturing plants because the software would only work if you built the plant this way. So now, instead of building your company to the software, you're actually building software that works for your company. And I think that's a huge unlock. I don't know about you, but I think that's a huge unlock.
No, I absolutely agree then too. And I think that's where just the conversationalness of that type of agent and the interactions allow for those types of things. And, it's just, I can't tell you how many times I've been in demos or leading customer things and they're like, too many clicks, even though it was 2 or 3 clicks. So I think that's where, like, the process sort of can change and adapt by leveraging the agent, and you do have that customizability to make it your own and for what works for you as well.
So when you think about those types of tools and you think about kids, take it back to your son, right?
Yeah. And I have a daughter too. I don't want her to get left
Oh,
out
of
when
course.
she listens one day. But
Yeah, exactly. But take it back to your son. What's your son's name?
my son's Luca.
Luca. So when Luca enters the workforce, it's a little ways down the road, but like, how do you think this is going to change Luca's career? What skills he's going to need? What kind of a mindset he's going to need? Do you think this changes things?
I think it has to. And I think, I've been really trying to analyze, like, the skills of the future that I think people need. And we were just talking about the example of the person that's going to go there and try to build that benefits agent for himself, right? They have a curiosity. And I think curiosity has to be probably the number one thing that I feel I want him to have and others to have, because then that will allow them to build new or come up with ideas. And that's where I do sometimes go back and forth with, leveraging AI tools sometimes, because am I maybe not always being creative and I'm just working with what it gives me?
Yep.
So I go back and forth on that, but that's probably the skill.
I love that. I love the word curiosity, because I think what it does is it drives kind of beginner's mindset, as well as kind of a first principle mindset of like, well, what if we didn't do it this way? But in HR, I'm curious as to how much you see that curiosity gene right now with customers or prospects, because like for a lot of us, that have been doing this a while, it's hard to say, could you imagine it a different way? And it's one of my favorite things in life when all of a sudden someone says to me, like, well, why would you not do it that way? I'm like, yeah, you're right. Why would I not do it that way? It's just that's not how I was programmed, or it's not what I thought about. So I'm curious as to what you see from the HR customers that you have.
See, you're curious too.
Yeah, yes, for sure, yes.
Yeah, so I think with my customers, though, a lot of times I try to never really ask too much ever about like current state of anything, because I don't want to ever go down the path of like we're always going to just recreate what you have today in something.
I love that's really important. I hope that the listeners listen to that loud and clear, because the number of times people say, let's compare current state to future state, and I say, why?
Yeah.
And I get the fact that you're doing it from a delta standpoint, from a change, but like what value?
Yeah.
I love that you said that.
Well, I think it's also, and we ask a lot of what are we trying to accomplish? And I think there's a lot of people out there that sometimes are very quick to just say, let's add AI to this,
Yep.
right? Let's just add AI because AI is hot right now. But instead, like you just said, like, why don't we just start at the beginning again? What are we trying to accomplish? And then we could layer AI into all of that to come up with a new and better way.
So that requires, how do I say this? That requires adaptability. It requires people to be flexible. It requires them to be open-minded, and it requires them to probably change their jobs. Where do you see that? Because, like, once again, we're saying you used to do it this way for 20 years. Now, all of a sudden, I'm just going to say something a little bit bold, but if you still want a job here, you're going to have to work this way. And I'm wondering if you're starting to see that, or even within your own firm, if how you work has changed as a result of AI.
Well, how we work has changed definitely already, I would say. I think, but I try to, especially listening to you so often, I think about the people. And people nowadays, I feel like, are just getting more and more thrown at them and being asked to do a lot more with less. So I think that's one of the challenges right now. And I think it's hard to say to people, like, go ahead and just go learn AI, right?
Yep.
Like, on your own. I think we have to somehow free them up in some ways, which takes investment and time to be able to give them those opportunities. So that's, I think, one of the struggles. And people are burned out a lot at the moment, it feels like. And with so much change, sometimes it's another thing I have to do. And I've been coming to the realization as I get a little bit older and been in the workforce for so long, like, not everybody is going to be a rock star, which is hard to accept also. So you have this subset of the population that's probably going through and doing all the things we talked about, but then there is some of that other side that is just, like, they want to get paid and go home also.
So what?
too.
Oh my gosh, I've got so much to say. No, it's all good. So what happens to those others? Because, I mean, that, to me, opens up a whole question of relevance. Are you still relevant? You know, and like, yeah, I know you're burnt out, and I know you're tired, and I know you've got change fatigue, you know, et cetera, et cetera. I know you're still you're recovering from COVID. I know you're working on return to work and return to office, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're not learning, like, you're not going to be relevant. So what happens to I know you don't have the answer, because I don't think anyone has the answer. But in your mind, you know, is that acceptable in today's world? Because I know, I'm sorry.
No,
because I hear you saying they're worn out, but like, and maybe I'm too like pushy, but I'm like, I don't care if you're worn out. Like, keep going, because that's how fast the world is changing right now. If you want to be here and you want to be relevant, you're going to have to keep learning.
I'm in complete agreement with you. I think probably you more so even than me is just built different, right? And there's a speed of like 200% and constantly going and doing and learning. And I'm obviously trying to do the same. And I feel like I'm still always even behind, despite how fast I move and others around me move too. Like, the pace of change you and I have talked about is just so rapid right now.
Yeah.
So I think, well, to answer your question, I'm worried about those folks then, because those will be the people that get overstepped. And I worry about potentially, like, where do things go for them next?
I think that one of the things that's really interesting to me, because, you know, we talked about keeping up. And because things change so fast, if you actually miss a day, you can actually put in twice as much work the next day and leapfrog. So I always like to say that to people who feel like everyone feels like they're behind. But guess what? You can go from behind to ahead in a really short period of time now, where in the past we've gone from behind to like, I'm never going to catch up. You know what I mean? Because the pace is so fast.
And I think just the access to information that people have nowadays too is just so tremendous, where you can catch up to an extent or feel like you're making headway in your knowledge and your learning. And it feels like every day, though, there's still another tool that's coming out. And I think that's why, like, experimenting with it in your personal life a little bit. Like, I didn't have a real use case for Lovable in my work job necessarily, but I said, how can I try this in my own personal life and figure something out? And I think that may help with that personal curiosity, personal trying, that testing things out, like you said.
So one of the things that comes along with that is trust. And I know that there'll be some talk at the HR Tech conference here about trust. Probably not. It's probably not a sexy feature of software, trust. But when we start to think about algorithms and algorithms controlling who we hire, algorithms controlling what my performance rating is, and things like that, like how do you think about that ever?
All the time. I think trust happens with transparency. And I mean, that's why I've been following the Workday Mobley case so closely, because I felt like a lot of it was because there wasn't a trust in what happened once I submitted that application.
Can we talk about that for a second?
Anytime, yeah, sure.
Because if you've been following that closely, I think I should be following it probably more closely. In fact, 4 people asked me about it last week, and I haven't been following it that closely, and I had a dream about it last night. You know when you have a dream about, like, not studying for a test the night before? Like, that's how I dreamt last week. Because I'm like, I don't know enough about this. So, like, when we think about that, we think about that case. Because there's a lot of people, and I don't know if it's as big as they're making it sound, but there's a lot of people waiting for what happens with that case. And one of the things that I think, as someone who's been in this space for a long time, is that we've been counting on, like, at PeopleSoft, way back in that day, like, it used to tell me that the hiring, this person, if you hire this person, there's a 93% chance they're going to be successful. If you hire this person, there's an 86% chance they're going to be successful. But guess what? As a manager, I never trusted the computer or the machine to make my decision for me. I used it as a piece of data. And what I'm wondering with this Workday Mobley case is this like the glacier this iceberg breaking off, and all of a sudden saying, like, we really are going to trust machines to decide who we hire? Like, is that where we're going? Because I think that's bad.
Well, I mean, we've talked a lot about just human interaction in these key decisions, and I think so much of it really just stemmed from maybe candidates being frustrated right now in that it's a tough job market. I'm submitting these applications. I'm hearing about these AI tools that are out there, whether it's doing X, Y, Z or not, and they're going, I'm not getting the job. And there could be 1,000 different reasons for why they didn't get that job, but I felt like it's definitely being a lack of, it goes back to the trust.
But doesn't this feel like someone's just picking on Workday? Like, couldn't it be Blue Day or Green Day or Yellow Day, that they were picking on? Like, it just, because like, that's like saying, hey, a calculator gave me the wrong answer, so I'm going to sue it. Like, are we really going to start blaming technology for this stuff?
I feel like my honest opinion, and I guess I'm going on record saying it now, but yeah, I feel like it could have been any software vendor.
Any vendor, right?
Easily any vendor.
I mean, what if I was in my Schwab account, and my Schwab account said, hey, go out and buy Joann Fabrics today. Well, Joann Fabrics just filed for bankruptcy. But hey, because it said to do that, I'm going to go put $1,000 into Joann Fabrics. It'd probably be a stupid thing to do, but would I go back and sue Schwab for telling me to do that? I mean, this is why I call it human at the helm, not human in the loop, because human's still in charge here. And I think that any of us that think that machines are going to, any of us that let machines make decisions in a probabilistic world, which is what AI is, I think we're giving up our complete control as humans. I don't know what your thoughts are, but that's how I feel.
No, I agree, and I think it's the things that we do best, honestly, too, as humans. So,
yeah. So, I mean, where do you think that case is going to go?
I think it's going to wind up eventually getting dismissed at some point. I think it's out there to prove a point.
And I want us
hopefully.
to learn.
Yeah.
I want us to learn from it. I want us to learn that we need to stay involved. That we as humans, need to stay involved.
Yeah.
Now, let's tie that back to parenting again.
Okay.
And let's tie it back to teaching. So when all of a sudden a teaching bot teaches your kid something, should we 100% accept it?
Well, I think the same way that when you and I put something into Claude or ChatGPT, we're not always taking everything for 100% fact always, too. I mean, there's been times where I've asked for advice on a product, and I got false information in that response, and I changed my prompt to say use only official documentation sources and all of these things, and it was able to clean it up. But I think everything you still need to verify, and even ChatGPT has a little disclaimer at the bottom, right? Like, may give false information. And, I'm not a data scientist by any means, but, I believe they're designed to try to always give a response if at all possible, because they're sort of penalized if they're not.
Yep.
So that's why we tend to get those hallucinations, I think.
So when you look at enterprise software today, you work with enterprise software and vendors every single day. Like, do you think we're at the new phase of enterprise software? Do you think we're at the ending phase of enterprise software? Like, where do you think this is all going?
It's a really tough question that I don't necessarily think I have the answer to, but I think we're going.
Well, no one does again.
Okay,
so
good. I think we're going to see a change in the way that we interact with enterprise software. And I mean, you've been around longer than me. I mean, I felt like we had these waves, right? It started with big enterprise software for everything. Then there was like that peak with best of breed. And then we went full enterprise software again for a while. And now I don't even know how many vendors, 400 plus AI vendors probably here today. And, and that's why we're seeing a lot of best of breed pick up again then too.
Yep.
But I do think enterprise software will change. I think the way we interact with it will be. But when you're looking at your largest companies in the world, they're going to want the best governance, the best security, the best, all of the things that go into enterprise software. Just the way we interact with it, I think will change. And I think we will see some connectedness to various tools outside of that enterprise software still too.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see. The next 3 to 5 years are going to be really, really fascinating.
I think it's going to be fascinating. And I want to close with how we opened.
Okay.
So, it's 2025. It's 2025 outside of work and inside of work. Doesn't necessarily feel like that always, but it is. And when we think about digital literacy, we, like people like you and I, are educating organizations every day of our lives on how to become more digital, how to have a digital mindset. Maybe we can tie it back to Luca and the human side of it. And what are you doing to drive digital literacy in Luca? Besides just the fool around and find out and let's build a cool app and things like that, are there some things that you're doing, with your family to make sure that digital literacy is not the only thing, but a thing?
Yeah, definitely not the only thing. But I mean, I get asked probably 1,000 questions a day from him about various topics. So I'm definitely trying to teach, researching is changing, right? Like in my day, we went on the internet and we did research papers, and I didn't have to necessarily, like, encyclopedias sort of existed at the time, but like research has changed.
Encyclopedias were big in my day. In fact, my mom's moving. I think she just got rid of her encyclopedias. Like we had A, B, C, and then D and E were together because there wasn't enough information to put in one volume. It's really dating myself. But yeah, I mean, we had search bars, and the search bars delivered us search responses. They didn't deliver us answers. And I think now we're living in an answer world, which probably changes things I'm sure your kids would be like, why did I get 32 blue links to click on to try to figure out an answer?
Yeah, and I think that's where what I'm trying to teach is the answer. I mean, even though search bar gives us an answer at the end of the day for certain things, but I am trying to teach research. Let's think about this critically. Let's look at the other side of things too. And just like the same way that, when I read them stories, right? Like we'll sort of go through and talk about, okay, what do you think this person is feeling during this, right? Or what is the lesson that we're trying to teach here?
Yeah.
I think you could ask an AI model those same types of questions, but that's not really what I want him trying to do right now at this point. And that's where I think there's probably still more for me to do in the future around, how do I want him exposed to those types of things?
I'm going to ask you one more question
Okay.
because as you were explaining that to me, it made me think of something that I find intriguing about you. I find a lot intriguing about you, but something I find intriguing about you. You've done a lot in the last 3 months to start building your personal brand, right?
Yep.
It feels like that.
Absolutely.
It
Yeah.
feels like that. So, and I don't think a lot of people do. And I think there's so many people with brilliant ideas like you have and that you've been sharing over the last 3 to 6 months. So just 2 questions. 1, why are you doing that? And then 2, why do you think more people don't? Or what kind of advice do you have? Because I wish more people did, because we'd all be better, we'd all be smarter, we'd be a better community.
Yeah, without sending us down too far of a path, but I love my job, I love the people I work with, but a resume is not enough nowadays, especially with AI. So I feel it's so important to put my thoughts and vision out there. So when somebody is looking to hire me, from a consulting point of view for anything, my name's out there with all of the things that I think about versus a piece of paper that everybody's using AI to write with all the same skills matched to the job application and looks exactly the same as everybody. So I'm trying to differentiate myself because I feel like that's so important in today's world.
Yeah, I
now.
have a kid that calls this proof of work.
Yeah.
And that proof of work. I have a kid. Do you like how I said that? I have a kid. I have, in my life, my oldest son, Ben, calls this proof of work. And the first time he ever said to me, I'm like, yeah, you're right. That is what that is. So is that the same line?
Absolutely.
It's not just what your resume says. It's that proof of work.
Yeah. And obviously you could call people I've worked with and everything like that too, but I felt it was important to put some of my ideas out there. I think the other thing too is I have all of these ideas, but I was always a decent writer, but I wasn't always taking the time to start writing a whole long form article from scratch and spending 3 days because I'd rewrite it 17 times and never come up with anything then. So all of my thoughts are my own. I come up with a lot of different ideas, and then I will use AI to help me get some, I think we've even talked about it before too, it's not cheating if you use AI for something.
Right.
So I felt like I've gotten more efficient by being able to use AI to put my ideas out there, where before I would have struggled to find
And
the
how
time.
much more rich is your network?
So much better.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy, right?
Yeah. Just the opportunities even being out here to interact with people that I've, spoken to online or share the same ideas or bounce different ideas with is just, it's opened up. And I would say to the young people out there, any of your young listeners, that's what I feel like is going to differentiate you for the jobs when you have 1,000 people applying for these things and everybody sounds the same.
Yeah.
And it's exactly what you said, Ben described is, that proof of who you are, what you're capable of, and somebody's going to take a chance on you.
Yeah.
The job market at the time when I was younger wasn't maybe as competitive at that time, but somebody took a chance on me and it's worked out.
Yeah.
And now I think if you have that presence, it's going to help out a lot more.
Yeah, I totally agree. Hey, being in Vegas, one thing you want to take away from this time at HR Tech?
Just meet new people. Really just meet new people, hear about their personal experiences, and just be a resource to anybody that wants to learn more or just interact with.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. Really, really appreciate your time.
Thank you.